Citizens' rights to freedom of expression and their right to demand for security and accountability from the government are part of the fundamentals of a democracy. It is in furtherance of this that will bring you this edition of our program, Violence Free World. My name is Kali Ikpe. We got a special report fixated on the aftermath of NSAS and government's response. How well has it been? Well, I got a special guest in the house, but that will come only after the special report. Be here. President Muhammadu Buhari on 12th October 2020, in a nationwide broadcast, stated that the voices of Nigerian youth have been heard loud and clear.
I therefore call on our youth to discontinue the street protests. Your voice has been heard loud and clear.
Why that sounds iconic, it seems same circumstances that necessitated the NSAS protest in the first place are still very prevalent.
I think the president heard the youth loud and clear. At least the government has acceded to the 5 demands that they made. Now it remains whether they will go the distance or it's an audio approval.
If truly government have heard us, things supposed to change. From the look of things, there is no change. Instead, things are getting bad every day.
It is now apparent that NSAS was just a metaphor for heightening gross injustice, impoverishment, insecurity, lack of accountability, bad governance, and other preventable ills against the people by persons in authority and the system generally. Recall that the nation was at the brink of an industrial strike on the account of an electricity tariff increase and a brutal petrol pump price regime in the guise of deregulation when NSAS suddenly happened.
Those remain short, price increase of prices, it means more youth restiveness because the youth will be restless. People ordinarily that should be in school are now at home, and an idle hand is a devil's workshop, except parents and the government find a way to engage the youths positively.
The youth-led protest made it seem like the NLC threat to protest those government decisions had been overtaken by events. Ordinarily, government's reactions signaled a paradigm shift, but later development attests to the contrary. A clampdown on protesters, snail speed at the improvement of salaries of police officers, continued detention of victims of SARS, and many other developments leaves a sour taste in the mouth.
I think government should do the needful. Whatever crisis between the government and ASU should be resolved. And whatever the issues are, I believe they should come to a round table and trash it once and for all. And to the youth, I said, they should get themselves engaged. This is the time to learn whatever skill that you can acquire.
In my opinion, following the recent happenings, following all that has happened recently, the government is on one end doing all it can to meet up with the NSAS demand. But then my major call right now should be on the youth of Nigeria. We have to put our hands on deck. We should also look out for ways and things we need to do to help ourselves in one way or the other.
The most bizarre and insensitive perhaps is the recent upward review again of pump price of petroleum, blaming it on international market forces. Finally, in charting a way forward, government must hold sacrosanct citizens' right to freedom of expression, and that those in government must remain accountable to the governed as we crave a violence-free Nigeria. Okay, time to bring you my guest in the house, someone very, very interesting. Jetta Amata is a movie director of international repute. He's been here with us and then out there too, and then back here and then round the clock. Jetta Amata, you're welcome to the house.
Thank you.
I hope you don't go back. Okay, let's just keep going around, like we said, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Jetta, welcome home. Welcome home.
Well, thank you.
Now, interestingly, you've come at very interesting times where the country looks like it wanted to boil on the account of people demanding accountability or so. You heard the president came out to make a broadcast in the wake of the NSAS protest where he said, the voices of the youth have been heard loud and clear. Going by what you see today and what you hear today, does it look like he actually did? Did he hear them loud and clear?
First of all, what's happening in Nigeria is new to everyone. It's new even to Buhari. But let's remember that he was a head of state in the 80s, and then he was toppled and placed on house arrests. Now, close to 20 years later, he vies for the presidency when Nigeria moves into democracy, and he loses. 4 years after, he vies again. He loses, he goes to court. A third time he loses, he goes to court. And then finally, he won. That means he believes in the system.
In democracy.
There's no other person in Africa that believes in the system more than Buhari.
Wonderful.
That means he will do everything within his power as president to keep the democracy. It is his right. So if 5,000 people are protesting and he feels that the 5,000 people could scuttle Nigeria's democracy, he will do anything to stop it. So let me assure you, first of all, that Buhari will not let his country go.
What made you this confident about Buhari? Come on.
Because every 4 years, see, we seem to have forgotten when he vied for the presidency. Everyone thought he wouldn't win. He went to court to challenge it. It went all the way to the Supreme Court, and he lost. He did it for 12 years. 12 years. He stayed steadfast.
Now, how does that connect to the fact that he said he had the young people loud and clear? I'm asking you now for the second time, based on what you see and you hear now,
Yeah.
does it appear like he actually did?
See, we're in such a polarized world right now. You cannot say he has done one good or one bad. He said, oh, he's listening to the youth. What could he do about it? Now, let me tell you, the people who are protesting, right, you know, they're the millennials and then the Gen Zs. We're Generation X. So the people fighting are actually Generation Y. That's why they ask questions. And we trained them to do that. We taught them to ask questions because we didn't ask questions of our parents. Now they are teaching our children not only to ask questions, but they're telling them that they can be whoever they want to be. So we have a deadlock. We have a group of young people who will not stop protesting until they get an answer. And now we have the older people who feel that they know best. So we have a gridlock. Now how do we get out of it? We have to start attacking the problem the right way. Our problem is not Buhari. Our problem is the colonial masters. There is no revolution in the world that has worked and succeeded. Do you know that? There is no revolution that has succeeded in the world without thousands of millions of people dying. So Nigerians can't ask for a revolution. No, we don't want a revolution.
Because we're afraid of dying?
No, not because these are different times. The times revolutions worked was when people didn't have phones and all that, where there'd be an uprising and then there'd be a takeover. There's no revolution that has worked in the world. There's no revolution. So a lot of people think that we're going on a revolution. Now we're not. We don't want to go on a revolution. And all the SARS people who are trying to replace, are they not us? SARS is the problem in the police, the way you have a SARS in the movie industry, you have SARS in the banking industry. It's just a mirror of ourselves. So if you kick out SARS, What about the other industries? What are you going to do? We need to have a reset, and we need to take the blame away from government. Let's talk to the people up there. Africa's debts need to be forgiven. For Buhari to restructure the country, there has to be something on the table. What can be on the table? I think the only thing that the world can give us right now should be the complete and total cancellations and forgiveness of Africa's debts. That's the only way we can have African Americans come back home. We need a clean slate. No matter how many times we protest, if we fight Buhari or fight government, they will go back to the big boys and borrow more money. We need to stop it so we can get out of this rope on our necks that's called debt.
You're looking at the bigger picture, but let's come back home now. Some things happened to which immediate answers were sought, to which some soothing of nerves were required. And instead, we're seeing protesters being clamped down on, people are being arrested, people are being hounded back and forth round the clock. When has it become a sin for people to protest? Where should there be consequences for protestation?
Okay, now let's put it this way. If you need 5,000 people to protest for you right now, you have the money, will you get them?
Yes, you would.
So we're people who would go for the money, right?
Are you implying that people, this last protest, NSAS, has something to do with money?
Oh, no, definitely not. I know a lot of people who went out there. What I'm trying to say is that, but it can be bought, true or false?
Of course it can.
As long as it
Politicians have always done it.
As long as it can be bought. Your problem is the fact that it can be bought. So you have to nip it in the bud. Because anything you see now, we don't know who's telling the truth right now, do we? Do we know who's telling the truth?
Which brings me to the subject of fake news, which is very, very much prevalent as it's been in the past with other situations, and it is with this too now. You don't know who to believe. You just say you don't know who's telling the truth. That's because for some people, they profit from taking advantage of the situation, as it were. So I do not really know. Government has come up to put up some explanations, which some people doubt. Other independent persons have come up to put, independent persons in quote, put up explanations to, or put up allegations. So the whole narrative is all too confusing out there. What can we do? That brings, again, the menace of the phenomenon called fake news.
That's what I'm saying. What we do is that we need to shift the target of our protests from our government to the world government. We shouldn't stop protesting. We shouldn't stop. We should continue, but not protest against Buhari, not against our government. We should protest against the colonial masters who have kept us where we are today.
Jetta, you're saying our issues further away than we see them here.
But that's the reason we're in this hole.
That's the reason we're in this hole. Yeah, okay. We're going to come back and then look at the circumstances that we believe necessitated this NSAS protest in the first place, or the youth revolution, or the youth protest in the first place. But that's when we return from this break. This is Violence Free World. I've been discussing with Jetta Amata. When we return from the break, there will be more. Stay here. Welcome back. This is Violence Free World, and Jetta Mata is still very much in the house. Now, Jetta, Going back to our conversation, I did say I was going to touch on the circumstances that warranted the NSAS protest in the first place. Those circumstances, as impoverishment, poverty, injustice, unemployment, a whole lot are still very, very much prevalent. Then regrettably, recently we had government is increasing the pump price of petroleum, anchoring it on deregulation or removal of subsidy, of zero subsidy completely. There's electricity price hike. There are all sort of taxes left, right, and centers. How insensitive can one be? I don't know. How does this add up to you? We're saying we're discussing international factors, but let's come here now and see how we deal with ourselves. Are we good?
What's happening in Nigeria is happening in other parts of the world. Like the US, black people in the US are agitated. You know, the black people in the US is just 13%. Just 13%. Now, the agitation is so high, and it's all the protests that's been happening, that's been going on about the unarmed black people that have been killed and all that. It's the continuation of that went to South Africa, where the South Africans were killing their brothers, and has come to Nigeria here. There is a revolution going around the world for black people. Black people have decided that there has to be a change. So in order for it to come into fruition, we must stop blaming our own people. We must stop blaming our own governments. Black people must stop blaming black people for their problems. Black people need to look forward and say, okay, let's fix this for us. And the fix I'm talking about for Nigeria, first of all, I think we're all messed up in the heads. Let me tell you why we're messed up in the heads. I went to boarding school when I was 11. Like, I was 11, I was still peeing in bed. When I had to go to another town and live with several people I didn't know, I was 11. Now, I have a 12-year-old daughter. I'd rather kill myself than send her to boarding school last year. Now, the trauma of getting beaten in school every day, beating and fighting has been a normal thing to us. They were flogging us every day in the hostels or in class. I've been flogged in an assembly with Koboko. Like those things mess up our heads. And don't forget, we now went into university. I remember when I was in command, we used to go watch executions in the stadium. Now, how do you expect us to grow when we saw on TV how they were executing people? Then as I was going to school in Jos, I was in Jos Staff School. In the school bus, we passed by Rayfield area where they put the drums, and you just see it right there. You just see the side. They put a sign where they do executions. So I saw that thing every day of my life going to school. It's the same problem coming from there. So everybody's guilty of it in Nigeria. We're all guilty of violence. Our parents beat us. I don't hit my kids, but I know a lot of my friends who still beat their kids till now. We've grown into a violent society. We've okayed the fact that people can stab other people, or people can steal from other people. Or if you want to get something, you must pay a bribe to get it. Or if you get your friend a job, he must give you a cut. We need to go inwards. If you change SARS and put other people, they're still going to be the same people who are fighting in school, in secondary school and university.
Okay, Jetta, now I think we should look at the solutions. What can we possibly do to ensure that this good life that we desire can be gotten? Children are being born into Nigeria every day. Students are being churned out of the universities and secondary schools, and it doesn't look like they are hopeful. That's the reason why even the people who are a bit comfortable cannot actually feel comfortable security-wise, because you have too many impoverished people, too many people who do not feel that they have any stake or anything to look forward to, so everybody is endangered. How do we go? Where do we go? How do we take this?
Okay, so we need to go back to look at the people who have been abandoned in our societies.
Okay.
Let's say the area boys. Now there are thousands of them in every street. Now let me use Cross River or Calabar as the as a case study for right now, you need to take not less than 5,000 youth, young area boys, out of their den and set up a new city for them. Now they're building Eco Atlantic. In fact, they're doing it so well that they actually had to put sand in the ocean to make it livable. Now, can you imagine how much pain and how much work went into that? So while they're building those posh ones, they're forgetting to build for these Salico boys. We're building so we can edge away from them, and they have noticed now. So they're not going to let those people rest unless you build for them. So we need to start up new cities in Africa, in Nigeria. If you take 5,000 people from Lagos Island and go resettle them somewhere, build a new city for them, build a house for every one of them, let them have schools. 5,000 area boys will go there with their families and then give them job. Let them farm weed. Let them farm weed for exports. The CBD oils. And the only thing you can tell area boys to come and do that will be happy, is to farm weed. So if you make weed legal and you set up huge farms for area boys, you get them out of the city. You get them out of the city. Those new cities they will build that would have the farms would be the safest cities in Africa. We need to go back and take care of those that we have abandoned, because those are the area boys that the politicians use. Imagine taking them away from the streets. Imagine taking them away from the streets. Let's say the people in Benway, let's say in Makurdi, look for one area, set them up, build them their houses, build them a secondary school, a primary school, even a university, build them a mall, cinemas, everything they want for their own city. You just take 5,000 people you call deplorables and set them up. If you do that for every state in Nigeria, we won't have violence. Because even the kidnappers and everyone would rather go and farm weed.
Weed, you've said weed like 100 times here. Now, I know weed, it's an illegal plant here in Nigeria. It's not been legalized here just yet, I suppose.
Not necessarily. It's
not hemp.
Yeah, it's the herbal. Well, they're selling CBD oils in Nigeria. The herbal, people are using it. People are using the oils to cure several kinds of diseases. So let's look at the oils that can be exported to Europe or the US or China.
Let's look at the positive. Jet now, as we wind down, let me ask you, your forte is movie production. How can we use movies to promote non-violence and promote less restiveness?
I've been doing that. I actually worked with the U.S. State Department where we trained people from the Niger Delta. They talked about the possibility of mass violence coming after the Goodluck Jonathan and Buhari elections. So I was one of the people charged with coming up with projects for us to not get that far. I even went as far as the African Union. The African Union invited me to come give a speech on this same thing that you just asked me, on how we could use the movie industry to have a less violence Africa. And I remember that day I stood up and after flying, I was in the US, going all the way to Cote d'Ivoire. And while I was talking, I'd prepared this huge speech. As I was talking, and nobody was listening to me. Nobody was listening to me.
How did you know nobody was listening to you?
Because I was looking at them.
And they weren't looking at you?
They were not listening to me. Every movie I've made on something. Black November, I made it went to the United Nations. I got a bipartisan resolution from the US Congress, from Congressman Bobby Rush and Congressman Fontenberg, on my film and the cleanup of the Niger Delta. Yes, I've done that. I've screened in different universities all over the world. I've been doing that. But it doesn't work. We have to reset.
Now, it didn't work. But like they say, you either win or you learn. You just learned a lesson on that day on how
they are not listening.
inattentive how people could be as far as messages on violence are concerned, how they were more inclined to the entertainment aspect of the gathering which you went to. But General, on a parting note now, you could give us an advice based on those lessons that you've learned on, I mean,
The movie industry.
no, generally, of all the things we talked about, and then your attempt at providing solutions,
Yeah.
trying to even talk to them, right. Talk to the young people and talk to the government, and
Okay.
talk to Africa in very few words now, so as we wrap up.
Okay, first of all, I'd say that everyone's agitated. People want to protest. All over the world, people want something that they can jump to protest. So now, rather than we let them run amok, let's give them what to protest for. Black people need to rise up to ask that Africa's debts need be cancelled. That is our single biggest problem, is the fact that we are not free. Our children would inherit these debts. We are not free. If the debts are not taken care of right now, nothing will move for us. Buhari will continue. Look, see what happened after the NSAS. Government went and started borrowing more money to take care of things. So they're borrowing more money. Our children are getting into more debts. But we cannot stop them from borrowing money. We can't stop them. What we can stop them, or what we can stop the world doing, is release the hold you have on us. There are 16 francophone countries who are banking with Paris. Nigeria can't sell anything without making sure the Chinese or the Americans or the British, there's no free trade. we can't trade freely. Those are the real things holding us back. And if we don't address the real ones, it's going to be like this next year.
Well, Jetta, I think I'm sure if I give you even the whole day, you would not exhaust these possibilities and prospects. At this point, I think that's a very good point to leave it. I must say, thank you very much for your views and your thoughts, and we hope when we invite you, we'll come back to continue this conversation. Well, I've been talking to Jetta Amata, a global film producer and director. As a music enthusiast, I think we've met there, I remember. All right, same time next week, promises much more. Until then, remember to remain on the road to a violence-free Nigeria. Thank you very much for watching.